This is Mindset for Success with your host, Dr. Leslie Knutson. Each week, she will interview women entrepreneurs to explore the unconscious psychological struggles they faced as they build their businesses and how they overcame them. Here's your host, Leslie Knutson.
Nisa Amoils is a partner at Grasshopper Capital, investing in fintech blockchain, and has been an early-stage investor for the past decade at Scout Ventures. She was named one of Business Insider's Women VCs to Watch and Top 100 Women in Fintech and Top 50 Global Blockchain Thinkers. She's a securities lawyer with an MBA and is on the board of several institutions, including Wharton Entrepreneurship and Girls Who Invest. She contributes for Forbes and hosts CoinScrum Markets. Prior to investing, she was an entrepreneur. She also has authored the successful and thought-provoking book, WTF is Happening? Women Tech Founders on the Rise. It's a pleasure to have you, Nisa. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Nisa, as you know, it takes a lot to be a successful female entrepreneur. And while business acumen is key, we rarely talk about the psychological challenges that women often face to achieve that success. I refer to those as those negative and sometimes persistent thoughts that create doubt and can undermine success and can destroy self-confidence and risk-taking. I want to just start a little bit today with asking you to tell us about your entrepreneur journey. What pushed you to become an entrepreneur 11 years ago? I know you had two small kids and had finished a long career with as a securities attorney and then for NBC spinoff. Tell me a little bit about why and when you became an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I was actually, I practiced law for a very short amount of time. Most of that time, as you said, I was at NBC Universal, which became IAC, and also did a stint at AOL Time Warner. Mm-hmm. Back then, I was involved with movie production and television and product placement and marketing and promotion, and often in Los Angeles. And because of my two small kids, I wasn't able to move to Los Angeles, and I decided that the only way to make it in that business was to be there. And so it was time to leave corporate America, figure out what I was going to do, and stumbled across another woman who had left a hedge fund who wanted to start a company. And that's exactly how it happened. So ended up founding a beauty skincare company with her, and then hired people who were experts in that field to replace ourselves. And so right around that time, I started investing in other entrepreneurs, because once I had done it once, I wanted to help other women. Mm-hmm. And so I started as a generalist, really just investing in businesses that I knew or could help, whether that be legal tech or media or beauty. And then slowly started to migrate towards investing just in technology, disruptive technology, mm-hmm. Which led to fintech.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can I ask you, I imagine that there was some risk to go out on your own after working that all time from the NBS spinoff, and I wonder if there was some risk, and if you had that, how did you manage it?
The risk really was losing money in investing, which I was prepared to do to be able mm-hmm. to learn. And so, yeah, that was, I do feel that if you don't do it, it's the cost of learning. It was like almost like going to school and getting a different degree, except it was an apprenticeship. So I set aside a certain amount that I thought I could lose, that I wouldn't mind losing, and it wouldn't hurt my family. So, and that's how I started. Then I joined a professional angel group and started surrounding myself with other people who were now doing this full time. And that made it more, gave it more structure and made it more like a job.
Which made it probably easier too, because of the structure, you kind of knew what to expect. And then you knew what you were prepared to lose. And so it was easy to kind of work through the business part of it, because you weren't so overwhelmed with basic, I don't know, needs or thinking about it.
Right, exactly.
Would you consider helping women entrepreneurs get funded a personal value of yours? And if so, where does that come from?
Most definitely, which is why I wrote the book. So when I was in corporate America, or even when I was a practicing lawyer, I really didn't I saw some disparity and bias against women, but I didn't really realize the full extent of it until I was in venture capital. And I saw literally just female entrepreneurs with great businesses not being able to raise any money. And then the data came out, and it was 2%, right? And it's been at 2% for as long as I can remember. Maybe it hit a high last year of 2.7%. And then dropped back down. So I'm thinking, well, why? What's wrong with this picture? Women are starting businesses at the fastest rate. And why aren't they getting the funding? And then going into the research of it, the sourcing, the bias, the questions that get asked of female entrepreneurs versus male entrepreneurs, leading to disparities in funding. And this all seemed very unfair.
And it was something that came to you as you were doing funding for entrepreneurs, or you had thought about it kind of a little bit beforehand as you were working as a securities lawyer or then in entertainment?
I thought about it a little before, but there were senior women in those fields, right? There were women partners at the law firms, and there were senior women in entertainment. It was only when you got to tech and venture that there weren't. So that's when I really
stood out. So it stood out.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Are you someone who hasn't always fit in? And if so, was this ever difficult for you?
Yes, I would say it's always been difficult. I'm not easily put into a stereotype. I'm still working in a very male-dominated field.
Right, for sure.
After all these years, I'm still fighting a battle, and that makes people question why am I doing that?
And do you know why?
I just think it's a greater mission. I just think that for future generations, we have to change this dynamic, and it is just wrong. Because female founders outperform, female investors outperform, and nobody wants to buy that data. Or, I won't say nobody, but it's been extremely slow
to sell it.
Of changing that.
So you stay in it because it's important to you to be able to have some influence over the change.
Right.
Is it on the difficult days, the fight, the slogging through? Is there ever an idea about taking an easier route in your career, or you've just sort of come to this place where this is what feels right to you and you'll do what it takes?
It's a great question. And if I could find another route at this point, I might.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get battle weary.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've met so many older women along the way who've just defected from the army because they didn't get anywhere. And so, I think now we have women at the highest levels in government. We have in Hollywood. We have, in all these other areas, but finance and tech seems to remain the last bastion where we don't have equality.
So what's made you not defect?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself someone who thinks outside the box? Even
Absolutely.
breaks the rules at times?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I focus too much on the future, which is kind of my job, is to invest in companies that will be big in the future. But I see the future, and I see the wealth creation opportunity that technology provides. And I see men taking advantage of that again. And so I guess that just keeps me going.
And when the road is difficult, what do you do to get the support that you need to kind of go out there the next day and slog through it?
Yeah. Take a walk, run, talk to another woman who's a peer, talk to some male allies, things like that. But...
You talked about how your inner critic can sometimes make you believe that people underestimate you. Can you explain this a little bit to our listeners and how you've overcome this?
So I think I don't look the part of a female investor or whatever that looks like. People always just assume that I'm in fashion or something like that. Or that I invest in fashion or whatever it is. And so they're always surprised when I tell them what I'm doing. Yeah, that's a common thing that still happens.
And when you feel like it happens, what do you do for yourself to sort of be able to push through and give your best foot forward?
Well, I've accumulated hopefully a lot of knowledge along the way. And so I educate them.
Which I guess is sort of part and parcel of what the objective of your book was.
Right. Well, the objective of the book also was to get more investors investing in women by making the business case for investing in an undervalued and undershopped asset class that over-delivers, really classic arbitrage. So it's not about that moral imperative argument that you hear so often. It's about, this is just a way to get alpha. Why are you not looking here?
Do you feel like you've seen this change over the years you've been involved with helping entrepreneurs get funded?
The statistics are that women are now, if they have a male partner, they maybe get, up to 10% of the funding. But no,
No.
Actually, no, it's pretty much dropped during the pandemic.
Right.
So I haven't seen it really materially change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For some women, it can be difficult to ask for what they believe they deserve financially. Would you have any advice to give to women on how to ask for what they deserve?
Yeah, I have a friend who always talks about this, and she says, ask for the amount that will make you laugh out loud, and then just go slightly below that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how do you know where to go? How do you know how to do the amount that makes you laugh out loud? Is it the unthinkable, or it's your wish,
Yeah,
or you've done research and so you know you're in the ballpark?
right. All of those.
All of those. And to women who are looking for funding, what can you suggest to them in terms of presenting themselves for consideration?
Yeah, this is one of my pet peeves because it always comes back to when people talk about this, they always come back to, well, the woman lacks confidence, or the woman doesn't present the same way as a man, or all these things. The woman needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Right.
the system. The system is stacked against women, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what the book talks about.
Mm-hmm.
It is like the women are doing a great job, and even though they might have some confidence gap, that gap is closing at
Mm-hmm.
least. And so it's really now a systemic change that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. Why do you say that the gap is closing in terms of women's self-confidence? How do you see that occurring?
Just because of all of the advances, like I said before, you can't see it, you can't be it if you can't see it. So
Mm-hmm.
the governments and women at senior levels more than ever before, women on boards. I think that the younger generations really feel like they can get there, whereas the older generations maybe operated more from a viewpoint of scarcity, that there was only one seat at the table, so they weren't going to help other women along
Mm-hmm.
because it would be at their expense. Now the table's expanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it feels less competitive in some ways, more
Hopefully,
collaborative.
yeah,
Hopefully,
hopefully
yeah,
women
yeah.
are helping other women.
Mm-hmm. You describe how being an investor in women entrepreneurs is a learner's paradise. Can you tell us a little bit about what you mean about that?
I think I was describing investing in blockchain as a learner's paradise. So yes, that is the revolution that is happening in our financial systems, as well as the use of that technology in so many other sectors: healthcare, governance, climate change, identity, land use rights, supply chains. There is so much happening in that sector, and I've been in it for, I don't know, the past 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Decentralized finance, and that in and of itself is hard to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're literally, this new technology is allowing instruments to be formed, traded, settled, custodied in so many new ways that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that you it's a Cambrian explosion. And
Mm-hmm.
so that makes it a learner's paradise.
Mm-hmm. You talk a lot about sort of looking at the differences in what women obviously take in terms of funding for their businesses versus men. I imagine you've done a lot of negotiations also with men, and can kind of see what are some of the differences, what are some of the um, experiences that women have that they can do well in negotiations, just sort of to talk a little bit about um, good negotiation skills as a woman at a table of men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know that I've seen any gender differences there, negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just, as you well know, a psychological game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one that you just get better with over time, just from practicing.
And speaking to the psychological, which of course, yes, is something that I'm interested in. What is the psychological, if there was something you could say to our listeners today in terms of negotiation, not getting sort of stuck in maybe I'm not good enough or I'm not smart enough, what could you sort of say to them towards that psychological struggle?
Well, self-talk, tell yourself the opposite of what you're thinking. Read Getting to Yes. It's an old book, but it's still a good one. And don't be afraid to walk away.
Great things to say. How has your upbringing made it harder or easier for you to master a mindset of success?
Well, I come from a family that were survivors and raised on fear. So that made it very difficult. But always having to, push yourself to achieve the next thing, to outrun whatever might be coming for you. So I don't know that that's made it, that got me to where I am now, maybe.
But maybe it helps to stay in the fight, though, by the way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's a sense that you're used to what it takes to work through, I don't know, whatever's coming towards you.
Right. And just never give up. That mentality.
What do you think having good founder DNA is?
Grit, in a word.
Speaking of not giving up.
Right. That's good, because it's really lonely and hard to be an entrepreneur. And, things will fail and your business will pivot. And if you quit, then, right, I've seen that happen, right? I've seen entrepreneurs just walk away. So it's really resilience and determination and passion. I find that it's not passion for making a lot of money. It's passion for a purpose that's bigger than yourself.
Thank you. All really interesting, helpful thoughts for our listeners. I want to thank you for sharing with our listeners today your motivation for why you chose to be a female entrepreneur, and also how you overcame some of the obstacles that you've encountered during your journey. Where can people reach out to learn more about you?
LinkedIn or Twitter at Amoils Nisa.
Okay, great. Thank you again very much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
This podcast is brought to you by Women Entrepreneurs Global, the first startup studio and digital DIY startup platform for women. For more information on her guests, this podcast, and many other female founder programs, please visit womenentrepreneurs.global. We believe in open and non-stigmatizing dialogue about the hidden psychological difficulties experienced by many successful entrepreneurs and highlighting the strategies used to overcome them, such as the fear of failure, of not being good enough, and that loud, chattering internal critic is critical to helping other founders achieve success. Please join her next week for more Mindset for Success stories. That was Dr. Leslie Knutson, and you can drop her a line at dr.leslieKnutson@dr.leslieknutson.com.